Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. Breaking news coming out of the West Coast Davengers YouTube channel. CGC President Matt Nelson finally responds to the Mark Jeweler Fooler Reholder Gate scam fraud scandal situation. And so in this video, I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a little bit of a reaction video to this interview with you guys here today. Just weigh in on a couple of the key points that I thought stood out amongst this 1 hour long conversation, and then kind of give my 2 cents overall. I mean, big shout out once again to West Coast Davengers and Manu99 Newsstand. Of course, originally the two guys that came across the original scandal, and of course, have been able to be on my channel. I was able to go on their channel, have more conversations about this whole situation. It was actually very fitting that they were able to have Matt Nelson on to have this conversation and ask him some of the questions that I think the community has on their mind. Now, again, if you guys don't know, Matt Nelson is the president of CGC Comics. I've been able to meet him in person a couple of times. He's a really stand-up person. Every interaction I've had with him has been really great. And he, at one point, was the head grader for all of comic books there at CGC. I don't know if he still specifically grades himself anymore, but, he is the guy that, kind of defined the way that CGC approaches grading. I mean, he is the, face of the company, and was certainly the face of the CGC grading guide that they did put out. So, I'm going to link the full interview in the description. I highly recommend that you guys go check this out, but I did want to kind of point out a couple interesting parts of it. This first one right here is actually him explaining how the list was created. Let's listen in, and then I'm going to give you guys my commentary after he speaks.
I wanted to know how was the initial list composed of the books that were posted? I think it was 350 or so.
Yeah. So I can't really explain, how we arrived at the list. It's an ongoing investigation this time, so I can't share how we determined how the books were impacted. But we saw trends. We noticed. We immediately started doing an investigation and saw trends, and obviously our Reholder service was targeted, and obviously there were certain books that were used in this scheme. So obviously the list that was published, you can see a handful of books that were numerous copies on that list. So it seems like it was a very specific group of books to the Reholder service by an individual. But we're not aware of any other books that were targeted besides these 350 that we posted the list on.
So that right there is an interesting answer. One that I think that the community is, frankly, they're not going to be happy about that one. Now, he did say that it is an ongoing investigation, and so that he can't really explain how the list was created. Although I think explaining how the list was created is probably one of the most important things that the community would like to know. But at the same time, if I'm being charitable towards him, clearly they were able to create their list based on what they think the scammer was actually doing. And frankly, it's my speculation that if they actually put out how they were able to get this list together, it would probably and most likely, share with people how this person was actually able to do the scam. We all understand that they were using the Reholder program, but I think if you can actually follow every single book that they have suspected or how this list was compromised, then you would really be able to get in the weeds and figure out, this is how he did it. This is the submission processes that he did it. Maybe these were all like Reholder submissions in person. Perhaps there's all these little intricacies and things that actually allowed this thing to happen. And if they disclose that, then that's going to let the cat out of the bag, and then people might be able to repeat some of the fraudulent behavior that actually occurred with this particular person. Perhaps there's still a little bit of a blind spot in their processes, and that might be something that they really truly want to protect. Now, on the flip side of that, I can tell you guys firsthand that there are people who have certainly reached out to me that have shared that they bought certain books from some of the sellers' fishy accounts on eBay, and those books are not on the list. And that doesn't really give those people peace of mind. So I've been telling people that if you're somebody who's still bought from the scammer, I think it is still worth reaching out to CGC and making them aware that you have certain books that came from the seller, especially if they're books like ASM 300 or X-Men 266 or ASM 238 and things like that. So it's a little unsatisfying that they didn't explain how the list was actually created, because I think that that's still going to give people a lot of anxiety and questions within the community, especially if you're one of those people that bought a book from this particular seller. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out here was him talking about how many individuals were involved, and by how many he means that they just feel like it is one person. But let's listen in on what he had to say about that.
To date, we believe there's only one individual involved. Yeah, obviously the investigation is ongoing, but to date, that is what we believe is the case. It's just one individual.
Okay, and then just to follow up to that, have you discovered if that person was or isn't in relation with a former or current CGC employee?
No, yeah, there's no connection. We found no connection with employees. We don't think any employees are involved in this. We think it's one individual that has nothing to do with CGC or not employed by CGC or connected to CGC employees in any way. So it seems like it was a separate incident from CGC.
Yeah, that makes.
So that is really interesting that they are at this point able to say that they feel like it's only one individual and that that person has no inside connection to CGC and that is not an inside job. Now, I made the comment before on previous streams that I actually felt like if it was an inside job, that might actually be better for CGC. Simply due to the fact that, if you have one rogue employee that's doing shady stuff, then clearly you have this paper trail and you can just point to this one employee, fire them, go after them and explain like, yeah, of course, like if it's an inside job, like someone's going to be able to, swap out books and do that whole thing. I actually kind of felt like it might have been worse, the fact that it was somebody outside of the company that was able to do this, because again, it opens up Pandora's box, like all those questions of, well, if he can do it, certainly other people can do it as well. And again, I'll refer back to what I was previously saying about how the list was created. They only feel like it's one person. I'm sure that, as far as the books that have mostly been in question are concerned, clearly it is only that one person. I mean, there's been speculation that, maybe they have help or they, have been dealing in comic books and they have relationships and things like that. But I'm going to take him at his word for the current time. But again, I'm sure that some people in the community are not going to be happy about that answer because they're going to say, well, how do you know that it's only one person? Obviously, if they found other people, they would go after those other people. And if there's other people that are doing it and they don't know that they're doing it, well, frankly, they don't know that they're doing it. So, they're only going to be able to say that it is the one person so far that has been getting away with this scam. All right, I want to jump a little bit ahead to another interesting point that Manu actually brought up here. And this had to do with compensation for the books that actually people, presumably got scammed on, or the people that are holding the bag with. Again, CGC has come out and said that they're going to do some form of compensation. They did an update on their website that, when you send in the books, they're going to have some process of negotiation for fair market value. And I thought that this was kind of a really nuanced, interesting thing that Manu said. I'm going to play it for you guys, and then I want to add a little bit of context.
For the compensation provided. But the additional layer to that is the market is down, but also this individual who fraudulently or potentially fraudulently put ASM 398 newsstands on the market is part of the reason that the prices were depressed, because this rare book was perceived to be less rare because this guy put 6 or 7 of them out there, or at least I could account for, a handful that people have bought. Doesn't that put people in a tough position? But that's not the question. The question is,
that wasn't his question, but I thought that was such a poignant point that he actually made right there, where, to recap, here you have a situation where, let's say that, one of the books that you got scammed on is your ASM 300. Okay, that happens and you have a direct edition, whatever. CGC goes on to eBay and buys you, the $3,000 9.8 and sends you the new $3,000 9.8. That's all well and good, But then what if you have one of those books where you have, the Newsstand, Mark Jeweler, right? And at certain points, those books were selling for $25,000 or, $20,000, well into the 5-figure range. And what Manu is actually saying is that, sure, at one point, during the comic book boom, there were certain prices that people were paying for them. Those prices are not the same today. And CGC has said that they're going to give you fair market value today. And obviously that's okay. That's understandable, because when you buy comic books, right, there is risk. It's not CGC's job to protect your downside risk or to protect, any sort of unrealized losses that you might have in a comic book. Frankly, if it worked the other way, like if you bought the book for $5,000 and the fair market value today is $10,000, well, they would pay you $10,000. So, right. So it just depends. I mean, it just happens to be that we're in this depressed market. But what Manu was saying was really, really interesting is that, yes, prices have come down. But if this person was artificially creating Mark Jeweler newsstands, presumably a book that, let's say there's only 10 that exists at the top of census, but all of a sudden this particular seller was able to flood 7 into the market. Well, frankly, of course he's going to be the reason that the book has been so depressed. I mean, to all you Golden Age collectors out there, imagine if this scam was actually occurring with a Batman 1. What do you think would happen to the prices of a Batman 1 if all of a sudden this guy flooded in, 5 more copies at the 2.0 range into the market? of course that would kill the prices as well. Even beyond that, of macro economy stuff going on. I thought that that was a really interesting thing. And frankly, I just think that that's going to be a situation where if you're somebody who has one of those books, you're going to have to fight with CGC's insurance team. I mean, frankly, if you've ever been in like a car accident and, insurance has to cover your car, like they're of course going to try to give you the lowest amount of money possible for your car. You have to say like, well, mine wasn't just, the baseline. Mine was like the GT line, that had a little more, trim and had the custom, tinted windows, and it had like the reversible seats and it had all that stuff. And so you have to let them know that, yes, the MSRP on that is $40,000, but my model was actually $50,000. And you have to fight with insurance companies to get the exact payment and the exact value out of your book. And in this situation, I think that you can maybe make that argument that this person flooded the market and distorted the census, but I think you're going to have to fight. You might be SOL in that situation, but if you're one of those people, one of those few people that actually has a situation like that, you might have to fight. And frankly, Matt does actually say that we're going to work with people. It's every book is a conversation. They only have to have 350 conversations. So they might as well have 350 conversations. But, also know that if you just sort of get handed off to the insurance person, you need to make sure to explain your reasoning as to what you think the book is actually worth. All right, here's something that I want to kind of flash forward to. Again, it's a 1 hour long interview, guys. So I highly recommend you go watch the full thing. I will put a link in the description so that you guys can, view it. Definitely after this video, I highly recommend you guys checking it out. But one question that Dave did ask Matt right here is, what kind of stuff can we expect as far as changes to the cases, changes to CGC's processes? And here is what Matt actually had to say.
Always looking for ways to improve our holders in our process. That's always been the case since day one. This is just another part of that discussion now going forward. It's right now today specifically, I don't have really anything to announce in terms of any changes that are taking place, but we're looking at everything. Everything's on the table. So we'll, as that information becomes available, we'll make that public. But we're certainly looking into a lot of different things. And so, one change that we've made is that the Reholder service is now being reviewed by a senior grader or multiple senior graders, all of them. So that's something that we've covered at this point. So anything coming in for Reholder is going to be evaluated. Not just, it was a service used to replace the case. That's what it was. But clearly, it's the books themselves need to be evaluated by a high-level grader that is able to determine if, that book matches that grade, if there's any other issues involved. And it's not just about tampering. It's also about, making sure that the book is, not damaging the holder, things of that nature. So, that's one thing that we've implemented to a change that we made in light of what's happened. So, but yeah, anything else that comes down the pike, we're certainly going to be talking about as they come. So, we're definitely looking at a lot of different things right now.
So no updates to the cases, internal changes to Reholder program, and now a senior grader is going to be looking at all Reholder situations. That's actually one that made me scratch my head a little bit, because wasn't all the books supposed to be inspected by the Reholder process anyways? I mean, wasn't that always the case? Now, I think what Matt would actually say is that, a more junior grader was probably looking at all the books. He mentioned a senior grader is going to be looking at all the books. I guess there's a difference there. I would assume that the junior graders are still good at their jobs, right? I would assume that they're still looking at the books. So it does sort of, shine a little bit of a spotlight that I think the people in the Reholder department just got way too laxed over at CGC. You know what I mean? I think that they probably were just, churning everything in and out. It was just like clock in, clock out. And this is probably, something that the person who did the scam actually knew. This is why they were able to take advantage of that. Now, the other thing that he talked about here is no new cases. I think that the community is not going to be happy about this one. And this actually ties into the Immaculate Comics video. And one of, the issues I actually had with that video. Well, before I really go down that path, let me talk about this. No new cases. A lot of people, I've been hearing chatters, people saying like, the CGC needs to update their case. It would be so easy for them to update their case. I don't think that that's true at all. I think that updating cases is like not only a lot of work. I think it is probably one of the most disruptive, company-changing things that they could undertake. They do it all internally, like their warehouse, their factory, etc. Like, you're not just like having to get, some, engineer to design a new case. You're not just getting, new parts and things like that. You have to get all new machinery, all new hardware. Everything has to get, completely revamped in order to, churn out all the new cases and whatever it is that they actually come out with. So it is a massive undertaking. And shout out to Como Comic Books. He actually made mention to me, like, if you guys don't know, when CGC had to turn over from the old cases to the current cases that we have today, I mean, that was like a 4-year process. And that was the time when we had a lot of case issues. Newton rings were a huge issue during that time. It took a long time for them to figure out, the proper reholder and all that stuff. So it's not that easy for them, to get new cases done. It's really not that easy. Now, this does sort of beg the question, okay, if not a new case, why not some kind of, a hollow foil sticker or some kind of tearaway thing that when a case is opened, the sticker gets peeled off. So therefore, that this case has been opened before. I think that those are fair things to point out. And probably that's kind of what Matt is inferring, that, hey, we're listening and we're thinking of ideas of things that can be done. But at the same time, you have to also wonder, is that really an issue? Because again, I will now go to the Immaculate Comics video. He came out with that video showing how a CGC case could be opened and a book could potentially be slid back into it and made to look like it was resealed. But no disrespect to Immaculate. I think he has a great YouTube channel and makes great content over there. But we don't actually know that process would fool CGC. It's all purely speculation, right? It's like, hey, here's potentially how it could be done. But we don't know that if you actually did that and then sent it in to CGC's Reholder department, that they wouldn't have caught that. Now, we can assume that because the Reholder program was being lazy, they probably wouldn't have caught it. But at the same time, we don't know that is actually how the scam was pulled off. So with all that being said, we don't necessarily know that the cases are the problem. And again, I know you guys are going to type in the comments, you guys are going to be like, oh, how can you not say that the cases are the problem? It's like, of course, plastic cases can be opened, guys. Like, of course, it's plastic. You know what I mean? It's not a vault, so of course cases can be tampered with and reopened and stuff. And again, I would just throw out to you guys, we don't technically know how exactly the scam was done. We really don't. And then again, that goes back to why they probably won't be able to disclose how they came about with their list. Because again, maybe there is some blind spot that they don't want to release out there into the ether of the comic book community. And again, I know that you guys are thinking right now, oh, Swag, you're being a shield defending CGC. I'm not defending either or. I'm just saying we don't actually know. We think we know. We've speculated. We've come up with a lot of great things in the community. People have done really, really fantastic research, but we don't actually know. So going back to them not coming out with new cases, I think that that's going to be something that is extremely disappointing for the community to hear. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know, man. I think coming out with new cases was going to be a huge, huge task for them. And frankly, like, again, I will point out, maybe the cases aren't really the problem, right? Like maybe the cases aren't really how the scam was done. All right, I want to move forward a little bit to a different part of the conversation that isn't actually about the current scandal, but is actually a question that Manu actually brought up about 9.9s. And this one I thought was really interesting because this is something I made a video about. We've been talking about 9.9s right here, and I've made the joke, but being kind of serious, that 9.9s are going to be the new 9.8. And let's just listen to what they had to say about 9.9s right here.
Because I saw a video of you saying that 9.9s are allowed to have a color breaking tick. Now, you said it. That's the truth. You wrote the book, right? So a 9.9. Now look, there's not a single collector I know that would ever, if they purchased a 9.9 and the thing showed up with the color breaking tick, oh, they're going to be angry. Because we have this, you know how it is. There's people that run around thinking 9.8 shouldn't even have ticks. We know better. 9.
That's right. That's right.
It's going to have ticks. But that was a compelling thing for you to say, so the reel did really work well. I was like, I'm going to take this man saying this because this is going to be a shocker for people. And it did that, right? And it was an eye-opener. But and obviously all of this can be struck unless you think it's in good conversation to say. With an Ultimate Fallout 4, 4,700 9.8s, right? How are there, Mr. Matt Nelson, how are there no 9.9s of an Ultimate Fallout 4?
I would like to add, how are there no Darkhawk 1 9.9s? Actually, don't make any Darkhawk 1 9.9s. Okay, I have the 9.8 double cover. I have the best copy that exists out there, and I don't want any 9.9s on the census. But carry on.
What is going on here?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know. We do scrutinize. The line between 9.8 and 9.9 gets pretty tight, and it's funny because in people's minds, that don't grade for a living, they look at 9.8 and 9.9 and go, well, the difference between the two has got to be tiny, and to some degree it is. But there's actually a good bit of stuff we allow in 9.8 that we don't in 9.9 or 10. And like printing defects is a big one. And so now Ultimate Fallout's obviously a newer book that doesn't exhibit. Actually, it does exhibit printing defects, but they usually press out.
Yeah, but, right. The polybag crease, I'd imagine one of the things we're talking about. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Usually those books grade like 7.5 to 8.5 raw.
I buy them all the time. Crack them out, press them, and it's a 9.8 all of a sudden.
It gets a 9.8, but there's like I think there's a couple little, like a color and ink rub, which is really common on modern books. Those usually keep it down. So, but there is, are there some 9.9s among those 9.8s? Yeah, possibly. And maybe it just requires a little extra attention. But there's, an idea that we've bandied about for a while now is eventually when we have the bandwidth is opening up a 9.9 pre-screen.
9.9 pre-screen, guys. 9.9 pre-screen. You heard it from Matt Nelson himself. Are there some Ultimate Fallout 4s that are 9.8s right now that could maybe be pressed up to a 9.9? Yes. And here's the thing. I've said it on the channel, guys. I'm telling you, 9.9s are the next frontier for CGC. We are in this age where it just makes sense. They're going to figure out ways to add 9.9s to the market. I personally don't think that's a good idea. I personally think that even if it is not technically true that there aren't 9.9s and 10s out there, I just think that the community has adopted that 9.8 books are perfect. And the reason why we don't call them 10s is because, we have that adage of like, oh, nobody is perfect. Nothing is actually perfect, right? But for all intents and purposes, 9.8s are perfect. 9.6s are the things that have, the 1 or 2 or the 3 spine ticks or whatever. We've all kind of just agreed on that. But I think that that's pretty crazy. I think that might be the spiciest thing to come out of this interview is that, at some point in the future, we are going to be getting 9.9 pre-screens, or potentially we might be getting 9.9 pre-screens. He says that that's an idea that they floated around, and that potentially there could be Ultimate Fallout 4s that get CPR'd to 9.9. And I think it's only a matter of time, really. I think it's only a matter of time before we get that. Again, it just makes sense. And this is, in this interview, they talk a little bit about like the evil corporate, perception we have of CGC and that sort of thing. And so I'll put on my tinfoil hat of the evil corporate CGC that I see definitely wants to open up the door to allow people to try to go for that 9.9. So I think it's inevitable at this point. Now, the only other little thing that I want to point out in this video is later on here at 48. I won't play it. Actually, I'm going to let you guys watch the whole video. But Matt does say, and he does reemphasize that it is their intention at CGC to go after this person to the fullest extent of the law, to actually go after them. So I do think that that's a good thing. They need to make an example of this person, frankly, and they need to let the community know that CGC is not going to be a company that can be taken advantage of and can be used to manipulate the community. So that I thought was another really, really important point that Matt made. Now, again, I just covered some of the interesting things that I wanted to talk about. You guys should go watch the full interview. Definitely go over to this channel, give West Coast Davengers a sub, give the video a like, all that good stuff. Definitely go check it out. But one other thing that I wanted to look at before we wrap up, here is just to check a little bit of the comments, because I thought the comments were very, very interesting, overwhelmingly positive. People had very, very nice things to say, but there were some spicy ones. Let's take a look. Alex the Comic Quarter says, this is an example of the humanity of the hobby. I'm a fan of CGC. When the news broke, I thought it sucked, but with information that we had, I wasn't too worried. I didn't jump to doom and gloom scenarios. CGC has a long reputation of being a good company. They make their mistakes, but when you're grading 5 to 10 million comics, there's bound to be mistakes here and there. Great conversation, and kudos to Matt and great message. Comment Journey says, happy to see Matt address this with you directly and addressing a lot of the concerns the community has had. There's still some gray gray areas, but understandable due to this still being in early stages and pending lawsuit on the horizon. I'm sure we'll have more complete answers in the future once that's final. Happy that you guys were able to break the story. Yeah, I do think that, there's still some questions to be had with the interview. A lot of the stuff that I mentioned in this video here today. I think that under the guise of ongoing investigation, there are certain things that they can't say yet. And frankly, people, we're never going to hear. We're never going to learn. We're just not going to learn everything. That's just the truth. We've investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing vibe here. I'm still very skeptical that there was no one inside CGC that was involved in this. The tinfoil hats are out, guys. The tinfoil hats are out. There's a lot of great comments right here, but I wanted to show this one, a couple more tinfoil hat ones, because let's be honest, guys, the tinfoil hat ones are the more fun ones to read. Thanks for the interview, guys. I just wanted to say that I felt that Matt Nelson in his response felt mostly disingenuous, and we're definitely self-serving. Like his comment of only 350 issues being affected out of 10 million collectibles graded by CGC is minuscule, shows his lack of care and understanding. Sick burn right there. You guys can read this for yourself. Then this guy, Binky Sphinx, had a big wall of text right here. I'll let you guys go to Pepe Sylvia Town by yourselves. You guys can definitely read that. Suffice to say that while definitely the majority of people are so happy that this interview was able to come out, and you got to give Matt Nelson a lot of props. I mean, he could definitely turtle up. He could definitely not comment on this, but shout out to him for actually getting on camera and saying what he could say. Now, you guys might feel that a lot of his answers are very canned and corporate and not actually, sharing with the community the actual truth. But hey, I'll take canned answers before I take no answers all day, right? I mean, what can you expect? What can you really hope for? Again, I still think that there's a lot of interesting questions to be had. I would love to personally have Matt Nelson on Swagglecast. That's actually something that I've approached him before, to be honest. So hopefully I can set that up for the future, and we can have more conversations about this, because again, conversations I think are the key to solving a lot of the issues that we have in the community. So shout out to West Coast Davengers and Manu for having this excellent conversation here today. Well, that is all for this video. That was me doing a quick reaction to this. Just wanted to kind of weigh in and highlight some of the interesting talking points that were in this video. What did you guys think about the answers that Matt Nelson had to say? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe. See you all in the next one.